Back to Snowball Sports. Today on the show we have Jay Poncha, who's working as a digital strategist for Mumbai Indians. He's working at the center of sports, storytelling, the digital space. So welcome to the show, Jay. I'd love to get into the insights about the digital space in the sports world with you. So I guess my first question to you is, what is a digital strategist and how did you kind of get into this role, or how did you find this?
Firstly, thank you so much for having me, Sachi. Really looking forward to this conversation. I guess before I get into my actual role, it would probably help to give you a little bit context on how our department works.
Okay.
So within the digital department, we have two primary functions. So one would be your social media, which is your normal kind of social media strategy, execution, everything around that. And the second would be product. So when I say product, it's essentially looking at any kind of digital product that we have, fan-facing digital product like a website or an app for the Mumbai Indians.
Okay.
That's the second function. So on the social side of things, what I do is I actually look at what we call performance assessment, which is looking at numbers, looking at data to understand what's working, what's not working, benchmark it against our own benchmarks as well as comparing it to competitors.
Fair.
And on the product side, we also kind of oversee the management of our website and app.
Yeah.
And that involves like kind of running any sort of fan engagement contest, anything of that sorts. And how I actually got into it. So my background has been in digital marketing. I think I've always been, I know it's a bit of a cliche, but very passionate about sports, knowing that I want to build a career in the space. After a couple of years, I realized I wanted a little bit more of a technical background and a technical skill set.
Yeah.
And that's where I was actually introduced to UI UX design, which is user experience, by one of my friends. And that helped me develop a lot of the foundational kind of skills that are beneficial in my job today.
Fair. Nice. So like just to circle back, so you basically work on the digital side in terms of analyzing the performance and data, but also the products which kind of include website building for the team itself and apps and maybe other products that you guys in the future might also release. And you're involved in all of it, like that is something, or do you still have to like be like, okay, no, I want to stick to my lane and my lane is more this, or it just merges at some point?
So I think it's largely quite a macro role, if I could put it like that. Digital is something nowadays it's involved in every different aspect of the business, right? Of the business of a sports organization. So something like ticketing, something like memberships, marketing, everything is going to have some sort of role for digital to play. So in a way it's great because we don't just get exposure to your traditional one side of the business, but various different sides of the business.
Nice. So just to circle a bit back to when you mentioned that you do analyze data. So I just wanted to understand, obviously through the IPL season, you probably go through heaps and heaps of data. Not just that, but I guess that's the peak time you're getting the most data. So what are a lot of, or maybe the key metrics that you use to analyze the performance? Is it like, follower count? Is it reach? Is it watch time? Like how do you really analyze? What metrics do you use to analyze your data?
So I guess this really depends on what your sort of internal goals are. I personally believe that followers as a metric isn't necessarily the most telling. It's a bit of a vanity metric, if I can put it like that. It makes a great headline to say I have the most followers, but the real value lies in metrics like shares or saves. So think about like how many times you might be coming across some sort of content on Instagram. You might not even hit the like button, but you'll share it with a friend. You'll do something like that. So that shows us that there is some sort of value in that content and some sort of an interest from an audience to kind of actually do something about it and take action.
Yeah, fair. So that would be like one of the key metrics when you're going through your data, just to see in terms of performance of how your digital strategies are working. Like you would say shares or saves are key. And I mean, I also like run a very small Instagram sports page, Snowball, and I do agree with you in that sense, because I have noticed, especially, like I know you said follow count doesn't really matter, which is fair. Like, I mean, not matter, but it's not the most important metric. But I have seen a little bit of that correlation whenever I've done reels that have had a lot of shares, my follower count as well has increased in that sense. It's not like it could be directly related, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know, but like it does help. I think that engagement comes the most, I guess, from a share or a save. So I guess
definitely
it also probably brings more views and people to your page, right? Like,
so I think you kind of already hit that point. The biggest thing is like when people are sharing your content, they're sharing it with people who don't necessarily follow you, right? So you mentioned this, and essentially your content's reach is increasing, and there's people who might not have come across your page or might not have interacted with ever now kind of interacting, because now it's come on their timeline, and eventually it'll kind of get into their algorithm as well.
Yeah. But like how important would you say is like the watch time? Is that a metric that you guys also use to analyze? Does that play any sort of role or importance in terms of like whether you know, okay, or like digital strategies are working because retention is higher? Like, is that important, or still shares and saves are like above?
I'd say we primarily look at shares and saves. Watch time, again, it's also very dependent on the kind of content it is, right?
Fair.
So if you have a short content piece, automatically your watch time is going to be a lot lower.
That's fair.
But it is kind of interesting to sometimes look at, and I'm referring to YouTube specifically when it comes to this, when you get like the average view duration, you get a sense of like, okay, where is an audience member kind of dropping off your content, right? So you get a sense that maybe I've said this and this has worked well, and after the content piece has moved towards a different direction, it's not necessarily as engaging. So it can be something worth looking at. I mean, I think definitely for YouTube, average view time is a great metric to check out. Instagram primarily kind of look at like, shares, I mean likes of course, but shares, saves.
No, fair. And is there any way that you guys measure the success of a digital strategy? I know because it's a huge ballpark, like it's quite vague, but is there any way to measure the success of the digital strategies you guys put in place? And is there like a monetary way also of assessing this?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, because nowadays everyone wants to know like what is our return on doing anything, right?
Exactly.
So good question, and answer is we do. So we work with a few tools that essentially look at what we call average industry CPMs. And they use that to calculate and give you a monetary value on a specific post, a specific contest piece for MI. So what I can do is I can go to a sponsor or a brand we're working with, and I can say, look, we published these many number of posts that featured your logo, and that based off the average industry CPM, we can say that derives a specific value.
Okay, and just for any of the viewers who are listening to this, can you just explain a little bit about what CPM is, like in just a short?
So CPM is cost per milli, which is cost per 1,000 impressions.
Okay, fine.
So it's essentially just an industry metric which we look at, and in fact the tool we work with looks at. And basis that you're able to kind of calculate on average for a specific industry, for a specific content type, the views generate that value.
Okay, so you can go directly to a brand and being like, this is the value we've generated based on the CPM that you guys have created, or like the tool.
So again, it's a little bit, we're dependent on a tool to actually get that number. I'm not able to manually go and calculate. And also we work with such large volumes of content that I mean physically it would be a little impossible.
Like you can, I guess, get an idea and a gist of it, but obviously no one knows the entire picture. But also, just is this tool like an app or something that you use?
Sure. So I mean, I'm happy to share the name of the tool. It's called Horizon. You guys can check it out. It's not an app. I mean, we use the desktop version.
Fair.
And it is a paid tool. So I guess you'd have to look into subscribing to it. But very useful tool. I mean, I think we might touch upon this a little later also.
That. Fair enough. So talking about that, like we're talking about these tools and the tech now these days, like people are using for digital strategies. It's a big part of what your job is also. But now there's the big AI factor that's kind of come in to almost every industry. So has AI kind of changed the way you're approaching digital strategy, or has it not really made a difference to you?
I think AI is a really funny thing because every work related conversation, eventually you're going to have AI kind of featuring in it. So short answer, Yes, it has, but I do feel like we're only kind of scratching the surface when it comes to the applications and use cases of AI in our job.
Yeah.
So I can give you a few examples of the kind of stuff we use AI for. Obviously, these are all kind of tools we work with, but we recently spoke about Horizon. So Horizon as a tool, what it actually does is it uses AI technology to scrape through all of our content. And that's how it is able to identify that, let's say, brand X, their logo featured in these many content pieces for this amount of time basis how long each of the content pieces, and that's how they're able to kind of collate that data and use that with the CPM value that we were just discussing and give you a valuation. So that's one example. Another cool thing that we use is for content archiving. So now during the season, I mean, there's hours and hours of content that we have an on-ground team permanently shooting like literally everything, right? So now that means we have like a lot of content, and at the same time it's not necessarily easy to sift through. So one of the tools we work with, it's called Scoreplay. You guys can check that one out as well. And essentially it's a content tagging tool. So it uses AI technology, facial recognition, to essentially tag specific individuals. So let's say I want to create a reel with Rohit Sharma and Lasith Malinga. Okay, I have these two people. I'll go into the tool, I'll search for both of them, and then all of the content, all of the images, all of the videos that actually feature Rohit and Lasith will automatically come up. So we can go to our editors and just be like, look, we want this guy's content, let me see all the B-rolls, and basis that kind of put something
I guess it just saves a lot of time. And like, this is a bit off topic, but I know a lot of wedding photographers use this now. I know I used it recently. I mean, like now any wedding photographer, when they're sending you your photos, they'll have this facial recognition thing, and
you just take a selfie and
genuinely helps a lot. So
sure.
like, I guess it can be used in multiple fields and like just different aspects as well, which is really cool. So I guess this, obviously the AI in terms of helping for efficiency, saving time is great. And I think genuinely, like some of the tools that even I'm using now, like to help me with my content, has just saved me a lot of time. But there's one thing that I'm always a little wary about, and I've noticed this, that has happened to me. So say there's a viral sports moment that's happened. I mean, I can give you a particular specific example that this happened. So when Laksh had come runners up in the All England Open, my algorithms obviously to sports. So like a lot of people I was seeing were creating reels on Lakshya Sen. Now, I obviously sometimes use AI to help me with the scripting. But I noticed that at some point what it was feeding me, like what it was giving me, I had heard those same words of other people also. Like there were certain sentences where I could be like, this is crazy.
You
like
could identify
I could identify the
person.
same thing. So obviously for me, I was like, okay, I need to think of a different hook, and now I need to rethink what I want to say. So do you sometimes think, like in the sports world, right, like especially sport teams, fan loyalty, fan engagement is so important. Like almost for fans in sports teams, they look at sports teams as a second family, right? It's like part of them almost. That culture is so strong. Sometimes do you think AI kind of impersonalizes the whole experience for these fans? Like if everyone is using AI to make content at some point, do you think that for the fans, that retention rate, that loyalty, kind of like, how does an IPL team, like say a Mumbai Indians, differentiate then from an RCB or from another team? And not just specifically IPL, but I'm saying in general. Like,
I mean, I think that's very valid question, and something we're beginning to see across the board, right? I mean, people use this term AI slop. That's a massive thing, and fundamentally the technology is such that I'm no expert on AI, but from my basic understanding of it, what it's doing is it's scraping what all is available on the internet, and it's kind of compiling that and giving you some sort of output, right?
Exactly.
So that itself is not necessarily original. I think as far as IPL teams go, and this is something we have experienced ourselves, AI is used as a tool, and we are very conscious about the way we use it. So even if it were to be used, so we do use it. First things first, we're always very explicit about mentioning if anything has used AI,
Yeah.
it'll be mentioned in
Fair.
the content piece.
Of
So
course.
that transparency is important.
Yeah.
When you want to build that trust with your
That trust,
audience,
responsibility is
exactly. You
100%.
don't want your audience to feel like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm being manipulated in any kind of way,
Exactly,
right? Because right now
exactly.
there's a lot of things where you're like, okay, is this real?
Yeah,
Is this
exactly,
AI?
exactly. Yeah.
So that's one thing. And then also fundamentally, I think, I mean, again, this is my personal belief, but the creativity and originality is something that is driven by a human being behind them and a human
yeah.
really kind of working. So
Yeah, I agree.
even though we do from a creative side of things also maybe for like a few standout, we call them hero graphics.
Okay.
So let's say we have a milestone like a Surya hits a century.
Yeah.
We'll want to create kind of a hero graphic which is almost like a poster style, super stylized graphic around them.
Yeah.
We might use an AI to like touch up certain things, create certain effects.
Yeah.
But the fundamental idea is coming from one of our teammates. You know, it's not like we're just saying, okay, create this thing for me from
That's
scratch.
what, exactly, with no like commands, just kind of relying almost on the tool itself to be creative instead of you being creative. But like I completely like agree with your point where like at some point that differentiator is the fact that like the person originating the content has to have that creative input, because that humanness I think is going to become so valuable in the future compared to what it is.
Definitely.
I think right now, because genuinely I see like a lot of the content and it really does start like blurring into the
Just
same.
one, yeah, totally.
Yeah, so sometimes, which is like what I want to talk about next. Like my next point was that like there's, you know, so much online clutter right now. I think you've also spoken about it a little bit on your sports page, which is Matchday -1, which is, so if you don't follow it, do follow it. It's a great page. But you have spoken a little bit about there's so much online clutter right now, and sports teams or brands now are kind of moving a little bit offline. They're doing a lot of offline community events. Like I know like you spoke about like RCB and Mumbai Indians doing like a phenomenal job with their like offline events. We just saw Virat Kohli this weekend had a really interesting, cool offline event to launch his shoe brand for 1/8. Do you think the offline events help better with fan engagement and community building, and I guess in the future just building that team culture and loyalty, you know, from the fans?
Yeah, definitely. So to give you some context around this whole thing, I mean, the way I look at the IPL, at least traditionally over the last 10, 20 years now coming on, it's almost been like a circus, if I can put it like that, right? You've got this whole almost obviously an ecosystem and almost an industry coming together for 3 months, and you have your, you know, the biggest entertainment show in the country. You have this huge tamasha, and it wraps up and everyone goes home, and it's like, okay, 12 months down the line, we're going to come back and do it all over again. And while obviously that is kind of the centerpiece, I think one of the biggest challenges IPL teams and franchise would face is the ability to kind of retain fans throughout the year.
Exactly.
Right? So how do you get someone who's an MI fan to not just engage with MI for 3 months of the year, but engage with them through the year? And that's where a few different things come in. So, I mean, one thing is the expansion teams. Again, in case you're not really aware of that, there's MI and MI women. We've got the WPL and MI team. But beyond that, we have multiple expansion teams. So we have MI Emirates, we have MI New York, MI Cape Town, and now very shortly MI London as well. So again, that's another avenue to have MI kind of coming in front of people's eyes throughout the year. To your point around the IRL events, I mean, I'm a huge believer that IRL is really kind of going to be the future of like driving community. And fundamentally, look, all that we're doing right now, even social media, all of it's digital communities, right? So how can you take that a step further? And especially in an online kind of world where you have this type of clutter, how do you make people feel a sense of belonging that goes beyond just saying, okay, I like this content, or, you know, like, fundamentally content works off relatability, right? So if you see yourself in a specific brand, which now IPL teams are becoming. I mean, they're no longer just sports teams.
Yeah, they're genuinely not just tied, like you said, to the 3 months of that year, right? Maybe earlier, like 10 years ago when it started, that was the outlook. But now, genuinely, I feel like teams are really trying to focus on brand building, the community building with fans trying to believe like they're a part of the team, you know, which is obviously really nice because it in turn also I think just promotes the sporting culture.
Yeah.
And then that just is better in terms of sports for India, I feel.
Definitely,
as well.
and I mean we're seeing a few other physical spaces also. So I mean a popular one is RCB Bar and Cafe.
Yeah.
So RCB essentially have a physical space where they've got
Yeah.
this whole F&B type of thing, and again that's like an association thing, right? I can
Yeah.
go have a good meal with my friends out there, and
Yeah.
it's a memory that stays with me for a long time.
Exactly.
So
And-
it's immersing it more into culture, right? Like I think that is the
100%,
biggest
yes.
thing that we look at, and
Yeah.
even for the mix, the biggest thing with that was how can we build a culture and brand around MI that goes beyond just the cricketing field.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think it was a great success. from
yeah,
what we
like
saw.
also just increase those touch points at every point where like a fan is like, okay, now these 3 months are done, but like there's a constant reminding factor, like, okay, like, you know, we still exist and we're there and you're still a very much part of our team culture, you know,
Yeah,
which is
yeah. So I think you touched upon this also, and
Yeah.
identity is such a huge thing, right?
Yeah.
In sports, ideally, any kind of organization or team wants their fan to
Yeah.
think to resonate themselves within them,
Yeah.
right? And I think, I mean, I know we're going a little off topic out here, but I am a huge Arsenal fan.
Okay.
And just to let you know, I have an Arsenal tattoo.
Damn,
And
okay.
I mean, I quite literally, it is a part of my
Yeah.
physical identity, right?
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and I guess this is like an example of like a brand or a kind of IP that has reached to a stage
Yeah.
where it's like it's so deeply
Ingrained.
rooted in and
Yeah.
ingrained in people's emotions.
I agree.
That you're willing to go out of your way and have something on your
Yeah.
skin for the rest of your life. You know, so.
No, and that's exactly what I meant by like sport fans are the most loyal fans you'll ever see, the most emotional, loyal ones. But like I said, like India's still at that transition phase where they're kind of still finding their feet on like how to create that sporting culture. And I genuinely think like in that sense IPL is creating that beyond just the sport. They're really going out there and building communities, and it's kind of nice because when one team does it, then there's that domino effect
Yeah.
and everyone starts doing it, which is nice. But maybe if you can just walk through with us like maybe 1 or 2 moments in the Mumbai Indians fan festival or the live experience that you really enjoyed, or you'd be like, this is something genuinely a fan would really appreciate, you know?
Definitely. So, couple things. I mean, I think the biggest thing probably, and this was definitely the star attraction of the show,
Yeah.
was the players actually being there,
Yeah.
right? And more than, and like I touched upon earlier, more than just them being there, seeing them not on a cricket field,
Yeah,
right? So now you're
exactly.
seeing them in kind of a light-hearted mood,
Yeah,
playing
not
around, and like, you know,
stressed,
not
not-
stressed, just
yeah.
having fun.
Yeah.
And sometimes just observing that as a fan
Is-
is amazing. Like you're like, okay, wow, I
Yeah.
can see my idol, I can see someone, and I can see them as a human, and you realize that they're
Yeah.
kind of just like us.
I
That was a
agree.
big thing. And I think another personal favorite of mine
Yeah.
was this activation which we call the MI dugout,
Okay.
which was essentially an activation we built around the MI bench. So we did a few things in
Yeah.
there. We had around it we had these statues, which was really cool. We had like these 10-foot statues of a
Yeah.
few of our players,
Oh, nice.
and we also had the bench, the actual dressing room replicated inside this
Oh,
area.
interesting,
So
nice.
that's something which fans don't really get access to
Yeah.
in Indian cricket,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So that's one side of it, and then we also had the trophy room, which was really cool. You
Yeah.
can see all of MI's trophies. So personally, that was like
That's
my
cool.
kind of highlight.
Yeah, because you're kind of like also diving a little bit into the history of the
The
team,
culture.
right? Like, which is nice because you actually get to see from where they started and how far they've come. And you know, like I watch a lot of F1, and I know I've gone to a few live races, and for me, genuinely beyond the races, that the fan parks are so much fun. Like the drivers also come and like they're on stage and they're talking to you, they're having fun, and you know, it genuinely builds more of that personal connect, which I think is nice that the IPL teams are doing now. But then my question is, if the offline events and community events are doing so well, where does digital strategy really tie into that? Does it go hand in hand? Will it start becoming less relevant if the offline experiences become bigger and more, you know, elaborate?
Yeah. So, and I'm not being biased by saying this because I work in
No,
digital.
of course.
But I definitely feel like digital is going nowhere. and it's something which is always going to remain. Like, look,
Yeah.
fundamentally, the way I look at it is, as much as you can do in person, and
Yeah.
obviously that is great. I'm not saying people should not do that.
Yeah.
The ability to reach more audiences and more people
Yeah.
is just unmatched on. You can,
Yeah.
we can have a conversation, but I
Yeah.
mean, this is a great example
Yeah,
of this, right?
fair.
We don't know how many people are going to be able to just sit in their bedroom and be able to watch something like this.
Fair enough.
So fundamentally, I don't see digital going anywhere.
Yeah.
I see it only kind of increasing.
Enhancing the reach, I
and
guess.
enhancing the reach and enhancing the engagement, enhancing the ability for you to connect better with the team you support and or a player you support, because you just have more access to what is going on ground, right?
Yeah, fair. Like practically, like these offline events are great, but they are also a once in a while thing, because again, the costs for an offline event compared to doing something digitally is obviously like, I'm sure, like miles apart. But yeah, so so now that we have spoken a little bit about the offline events and they're doing well and how digital is still very important, I wanted to move a little bit more from the sports team sides to like the athletes aspect of digital strategy. From what I've seen online recently, and there are a lot of online conversations right now happening about why traditionally Indian athletes are struggling so much to get brand deals, which athletes in the West are able to command so well, you know, like obviously the cricketers, we all know they're going to get the top brand deals, all the brands want to work with them, but what about the other top athletes or just athletes in general in the other sports fields that, you know, are just not being able to command this? Like I know like 2 months ago or something, Chirag Shetty, he's a national level badminton player, he's done super well, they won the Thomas Cup for India, I mean not won but won bronze, and he literally came back to India saying that, you know, there's just no recognition, like, you know, and it's not so much always about the recognition as it is more for them being like, look, we're doing so much for the nation, we're training hard, we're working hard, and you know, and nothing against cricket obviously, but it's just like, why are we not getting that same recognition, you know, which then in turn leads to like, they don't get the brand deals, and I mean not that he said that, but I'm just saying there's a snowball effect where, you know, like that they just don't get that same recognition, you know. And so sometimes I wonder, like, do athletes need to start building personal brands for themselves now, you know, the way sport teams and leagues are using digital strategies to build their own brands? Like, do you think athletes should be doing that as well?
Yeah, so I mean, I think first and foremost, it's always important to look at when an athlete is kind of working around this. Fundamentally, they are an athlete and their sport is their bread and butter, and they should focus as much and majority of their time on working on their craft, right? That being said, it is definitely important. I think having the right set of people around you is key to this. Also, in today's day and age, it's very kind of, it's easy, right? Like, I mean, all you need is, you just need a phone. You don't need much of a high production setup. And trying to build a brand that, firstly, I think fundamentally you want to understand what your values are as an athlete, right? So what are your beliefs, what are your values, what would you like to align with? So that way you get a better sense. And this doesn't necessarily have to be like, okay, I want to work with this sort of brand. I mean, it could be something as basic as you have a specific cause that you're passionate about, and actually kind of getting involved in that, using your platform to talk about it and build some sort of a persona around you as a person. Because fundamentally, I think to get success on any sort of digital platform, people want to know that you are relatable, you're just like you, and they are just like you and I. And we're all, you know, fundamentally we're humans, and we're just the same. So I think having the right kind of team, building, being open, and I know this is not simple, being open in front of camera, I mean, it's something that everyone kind of has to get used to, but to a certain extent, opening up a part of your life and building a brand that you feel aligns with where you want to kind of, the direction you want to go in. I definitely think it's something which the earlier you do, the better, because there's a lot of potential for it, and there's ways to get creative, and it's not necessarily about having, like, needing to have a whole team and a whole kind of production around you. It's as simple as just picking up your phone and shooting some sort of content, having someone around you who can guide
Yeah.
you in the right kind of way.
Yeah.
Again, it's easy to say,
Of course, of
much
course.
harder to implement,
Yeah.
but
And obviously, like, you don't want to like take away from what they're actually achieving, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
what they're set out to do. Like obviously a professional athlete, it's probably the last thing they want to do, but sometimes
Yeah.
I just feel like if there's a way to help these athletes, I think the best way would be to be like, yeah, you know, there's a tripod, a camera, just maybe try to, like, for fans to kind of interact and be relatable with you, like have some sort of interaction beyond just what you are to the world.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
have that relatability.
And it's a tough one, you know, because
Yeah.
I understand people might want to keep their personal life completely
Yeah,
different, you
yeah,
know, so
yeah.
it's not easy for
It's
everyone
not.
to kind of open up their personal life
Yeah.
on socials, and not that you kind of have to do that.
Yeah.
But it's almost kind of trying to have some sort of a on-screen persona, if
Yeah,
that makes
yeah.
sense,
Because-
right? I mean,
yeah.
traditionally, it's I get it. There's a lot of,
Yeah.
and again, I have no experience as an athlete,
Yeah.
but from what I can tell, there's a lot of duties, media duties, and tedious things that you
Yeah.
have to go through, which aren't great. But
Yeah.
trying to understand the value and maybe sometimes trying to put yourself out there in a different way,
Yeah, like how-
could be a helpful exercise.
Yeah, exactly. Because I know, like, I had met recently a high performing athlete, and I remember we met them at a time where he had just come back from tournaments and he was literally going to leave, I think, in a couple of days. And in between that, he had to like fit, like, I don't even know, like 5-6 different shoots and interviews and stuff. And I'm like, I know, and I could like I could tell we had the conversation about, like, it's obviously not their favorite thing to do because they're so focused on competing and doing well that it's almost out of skin for them to do it, which I get. But I do agree sometimes that people should see the value in, especially that's where the world is headed now. That's why, like, the value in, I mean, look at us. I mean, we're also in that sense, like, the reason where sometimes also creating content is because we want to put our voice out there about what we feel in the sports world. Like, you're talking about maybe a set of, like, the business side, the culture side, and I could be talking about athletes, but at least it's a way to just express.
Yeah,
What
yeah. I
we
mean, I
feel.
think it's so true nowadays.
Yeah.
Personal branding is really
Is-
so important. And like we were discussing earlier, you know, word of mouth can only go so far.
Exactly.
You never know who is consuming your content, where that can
Yeah.
reach to, and what that could open up to. I mean, I have very limited experience in this.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
even in the kind of very short bit of time that I've done it, I've had opportunities which I didn't realize that would kind of open up.
Yeah.
That have opened up, you know. I mean, this being one of them.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly. I mean,
and-
yeah, I reached out online. Like,
Yeah.
I saw a reel that I found super interesting, and I was like, which I kind of want to talk about the athlete branding, because you had done a super interesting reel on how Hardik Pandya and his really expensive watch, I can't remember the name anymore, but how he's kind of used, like, his wrist space as almost like a way to get brand deals now. So can you talk to us a little bit about that and how he's
Yeah.
managed to do that?
Sure. So I think with HP, it's always it's. I'm trying to be diplomatic about
Yeah.
this. So it's always an interesting one to talk about. I mean, people have their differing views, but
Yeah.
regardless of what your views on the person actually are,
Yeah.
fundamentally, I think one thing is clear. I think the guy is who he is,
Yeah.
and he has embraced that identity.
Fair.
You know, so regardless of what you may think of it or what someone may think of it, he says, okay, this is my identity. This is what I care about, and this is how I want to portray myself to the world. And he's unapologetic about it. And I think that is why people kind of do gravitate towards him.
Yeah.
But kind of, yeah, touching on that specific
Yeah.
content piece, I think it was really interesting because, you know, as a whole, on broadcasts,
Yeah.
ad inventory, I mean, that's a primary revenue driver even for broadcast, right? So it's
Yeah.
extremely gate kept.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
a broadcaster is going to finally have a say on what sort of logos or what sort of brands are out there.
Yeah.
Now, what he's done is something very simple.
Yeah.
He is known for liking luxury products. He's
Yeah.
known for liking specifically luxury watches, and he sort of started just incorporating that into his daily routine, if we can put it like that, right? And more specifically on the pitch. So there was a lot of training shots coming out where he was wearing all these fancy watches. And I think through that he developed sort of a and again, this is an analysis. It's not necessarily
of course,
something that he has scientifically sat down and planned out. He could have just been him, and the opportunity has kind of risen. But yeah, I mean, he created that user behavior. I mean, I know we've had conversations. I've had conversations with my friends. The next day being like, oh, did you see this? He was wearing this kind of watch. And then after a point, you start looking out for it, right? So, and what he was really smart about was he didn't do this every single match. So he did it only for a few standout, like in India, Pakistan,
where he knows
where he knows like there's these kind of eyeballs. And it got to the point where like we were discussing, oh, what do you think he's gonna wear on a specific day? And
obviously brands pick up on that.
And brands pick up on that. And I think his team, I mean, they've done a great job to recognize that and identify that there's an opportunity to work with a brand within that space. Again, because you've kind of generated that attention, right? So you know that people are going to be looking. And I mean, we saw that with Faber and I think it was a great kind of case, and I really enjoyed kind of even just being an observer of the whole thing.
No, 100%. I feel like, I mean, it's not entirely the same thing, but I know when Richard Mille wanted to release their products, initially I think the best way they did it was to kind of make Nadal start playing with the watch, and you know, like not only in terms of like the testing was very important, because while playing such an intense sport you need to know that the watch works, but it was just the perfect placement of the watch, like you're putting the intersection of the brand with the sport, so you know then everyone's like, okay, what is this, what are they wearing? And I think it's probably the nicest way to integrate something for athletes if they want to still look for brand
I mean, I think another great example is Whoop.
We're
seeing it's purely high performance based. And I really like their marketing. I mean, I might do some content around that also, but I think just actually using live real case examples of like, okay, so I recently came across this post just a few days ago. I'm sure you all might have seen, if you all have been following the World Cup, Ronaldo scored 2 goals, and they showed his heart rate for those specific goals. So I mean, it's showing the product in action, right? So that's the best form of advertising, because it's like, okay, look, your kind of idols are using these, and they're actually showing you how they're using, and they're giving you an insight into health.
Like exactly, like it's an actual integration as opposed to just slapping a logo or a banner.
It's not saying, oh, just buy this. It's not telling you that. It's just showing you a capability of the technology in a really interesting way.
Which is very cool, and I am not 100% sure, but like I think Whoop actually has partnered or has had investments with some top athletes, which was again very smart, because those are the people you kind of, because then they're going to self-promote, and like it's how Federer was with like it just makes sense. And I love that business side now of sports, where athletes are also becoming smarter with their integrations, and like now fans and consumers just don't want to be watching like logos on t-shirts or banners, they really want to be seeing how it's applied, like, because it just seems more of a fit. They're like, okay, if this athlete is kind of using it for this, then maybe this kind of makes sense for my health. And I know so many of my friends that use Whoops now.
Whoops has definitely become a huge trend, but I think, like you said, it's just that kind of organic alignment. It's unbeatable. Like when you don't need to necessarily go out of your way to market also when there is a natural fit.
Exactly. It's like also recently when I think Infosys has done that integration with tennis, which is like, it's such a cool thing, because I actually, until the news broke out with Alcaraz, I didn't even know that for years they've been working with a lot of the top tennis tournaments to kind of analyze athlete performances and where things are happening. And I was like, this is just really cool, and I guess it's the best way to integrate with sports in that sense. But speaking about athletes, like we said, okay, like the Western athletes are doing really well, but is there any one Indian athlete that you feel like has kind of, I mean, I guess we spoke about Hardik Pandya that has done well with this whole integration. Is there any other athletes that you can maybe think of?
So I mean, HP when it comes to cricket. I think there's a few other athletes, and this is not again related to cricket, but who are kind of embracing digital as a platform.
That's what, yeah.
So there's Gurpreet Singh Sandhu, who is he was the Indian goalkeeper.
Oh, okay.
Is the Indian goalkeeper rather.
Yeah.
And I mean, he started podcasting.
Oh,
and
insane. Nice.
I mean, we've seen this across sports, but he's essentially understanding that he has some sort of an audience. And he's someone who is obviously extremely experienced and has a good understanding of the game and just the wider kind of workings of the game. And he's working with creators within the space to kind of build out his own platform. So in terms of athletes, I think that's just one off the top of my head.
That has done a good job.
In terms of sports outside cricket, one that I would like to talk about is Kabaddi. I think we've all known that PKL as IP has been quite successful. They've done well. I think they haven't had the benefit of having the scale of cricket, right? Like with cricket, historically has had, you know, you're going to get those eyeballs. Kabaddi hasn't had that. But what I feel like they've done well is they've really leaned into kind of the regional aspect of the sport. So Kabaddi as a sport has been, it's very popular in certain pockets, right? So I'm noticing in their digital content where they haven't necessarily catered content for the mainstream Indian audience. They're like, okay, this is our audience, and they're very focused on those specific regions, right? So team basis, whatever regions they are, and that's really nice to see them embracing that, because at the end of the day, that is their core audience. And you can clearly tell that they are aligned and aware of what their audience is, and they're serving them in the way that they want to be served.
Nice, so I guess for athletes that are looking out to build a couple of personal brands, like I think that would be a good, like an example. And is there any like one sports team or league in the world, if you had to pick, outside India that has like nailed their digital strategy?
Yeah, so this one is definitely, I think, according to me, is the NBA. I think the NBA have done a great job. Couple reasons. First, and probably the biggest thing, is they have been very generous with their access. When I say access, what I mean is putting match highlights and broadcast footage on digital, putting it on socials for free. Now, I understand obviously media rights, that's a major part of all of these leagues. But actually opening up that access to anyone increases your audience, right? It goes out to that many more people are interested. And I think beyond that, they've really understood the whole hero and star aspect of sports. They've understood that increasingly audiences rather are looking at individual athletes, and they kind of become fans of them before they get into following teams. So I may be a fan of, let's say, LeBron James or a Steph Curry, and I like him so much, so I start following their team, and they really focus on building those kind of storylines and narratives around their stars. And it's not just stars, it's even plot lines. So I can give you another example. LeBron James, and recently, a couple years ago, Bronny James, his son, started playing like NBA, and he was a part of the Lakers. So that whole father-son plot line, you know, they're looking at like what is the human story around the athlete, and they're building that, and they're focusing on kind of building storylines and narratives around that. So I think that they've done really well. And lastly, another thing they've done really well is recognizing their global audience and having some sort of local global strategy. By that, what I mean is like market specific. They understand that, okay, now just because an American may consume NBA in a certain way doesn't mean an Indian is going to in the same way.
So they actually hyper localize.
So in terms of a good example is it was another IRL event. They had it was the NBA Bud X NBA.
Oh, in Delhi, right?
They had one in Delhi this year, and they had it in Mumbai the year before. And so again, these are like similar kind of IRL, beg your pardon, immersive events where people can kind of go and embrace that culture. NBA, I think, are doing a great job.
I had actually seen, I think they had gotten a couple of celebrities also that play basketball, not just celebrities, which I think was also smart, not just to get random celebrities, but I think they had gotten the roadies guy and like
yeah. So
Shania
Ranveer
Kapoor
Singh, I think,
and-
is their main
Yeah.
ambassador for India,
Yeah.
and he's known as someone who actually plays basketball also.
Yeah, so they've actually integrated
again,
in it.
it's that organic and
Yeah.
natural interest that they have.
Yeah.
It's not just like, oh, we want a big name, so we're getting
Yeah,
them.
yeah. Oh, interesting. Nice. And then just so if we were to talk about, like we've talked about now, athletes, what they should be doing and sport teams. If a athlete or a sport league or team were to be starting out today with their digital strategy, in terms of the digital strategy through content distribution and methods, like what would you really say that would be working? You know, like is it long form content, like I guess you mentioned the podcasts before, or like even short form content like TikTok or Snapchat or Instagram? Like what do you think is probably the right way to go about it?
Yeah, so again, this is very kind of dependent on the property,
Yeah.
as well as what stage they are. So
Yeah.
if I were to give you kind of a macro level sense
Yeah.
of this, short form video content is by far the biggest discovery engine. I mean, we've already spoken about this in
Yeah.
our conversation
Yeah.
already. So Instagram Reels, Facebook Reels,
Yeah.
YouTube Shorts, these three platforms,
Yeah.
you want to put as much content out there in short form
Yeah.
to actually get new audiences and get
Yeah.
new people to see your content.
Fair.
Long form is good when you maybe have a little bit of an established audience.
Yeah.
You have some people who are existing fans interested in wanting to know deeper stories. So
Yeah,
you could again put together like a podcast, you could have like a story around player journeys or
Yeah.
specific storylines and subplot lines,
Yeah, yeah.
which might be a little bit more in depth and you want to spend more time digging deeper into.
Yeah.
So for that, long form content works. I think few other things I want to touch
Yeah.
upon. I mean, they don't really, everyone's always
Yeah.
going on about video content.
Yeah.
Just from my experience
Yeah.
and what we've done from an MI, I think platforms like WhatsApp channels, broadcast channels, that's something to look out for.
Yeah.
Just in terms of one-way kind of communication with your audience. Important, any kind of news updates or anything.
Yeah.
That's like, I mean, we have most of our country operates on WhatsApp,
yeah,
right? So
exactly.
that's a great channel. Another interesting thing is email. People say email is
Dead.
and to a certain extent, I can understand that.
Yeah.
But that is kind of a way for teams to, you have an existing audience, and it's to kind of retain and re-engage with your audience. So I could send out our fans some offers. I could send them newsletters, of course. I could send them merch related offers. I could send them so we have a birthday wish mechanism for MI, where even something as small as a birthday wish, we have like, so if you signed up on MumbaiIndians.com, if you're a member, a blue member is what we call it, you get an automated birthday wish from Mumbai Indians. So even something like that is really small. It's really basic. Be like, hi Sachi, happy birthday.
Yeah.
The number of responses we get to that, which is like, thank you, you made my day. I mean, it's really heartwarming and it's really nice to see. Even a small thing like that can go a long way in making someone's day and making them happy.
Yeah, because it's just, it adds that, like I was telling you, like because of AI, that impersonal, I think this is such a nice way of that personalization factor for teams to be reaching out. That's actually really cool. Like, I think, that's a cool thing. So I guess WhatsApp channels, emails, and I guess if you are doing video content, then that's always a given. But these are like smaller things that you could be doing. Do you know if, I know a lot of athletes now are using, not athletes or maybe athlete organizations are using Instagram channels. Is that something that's also like...
Yeah, that's another big one. I mean, again, fundamentally you have such a massive, in our case this is, you have such a massive audience on the platform. Obviously you want to engage with them. So again, it's a similar strategy for something like a WhatsApp channel. But you have your broadcast channel on Instagram also, which is again for similar things, right? Any sort of update that you have to send, any real-time quick sort of update you want to send, you don't necessarily need to put out a post
about it. Exactly.
You can just do it. And I mean, even at a smaller level with smaller influencers and creators, we see a lot of people. It's a great way to kind of engage with your community, right? So on a larger scale, it would be more like a one-way communication. But I've definitely seen a few smaller creators who know they've got a really engaged community, and even if it's only a fraction of your wider community, it's a great way to kind of actually engage and
Yeah.
start conversations with your audience, right?
Exactly.
Get a sense of what exactly they want to know,
Yeah.
what their views on certain things are. Let them chat with you, let them
Yeah.
share interesting case studies, share questions with them, get their
Like
answers.
have discussions where
have
you're actually
discussions.
engaging, like as opposed to just have the comment section on a reel when you
Exactly.
post. This is just a two-way street, which is nice. And just in terms of content that's working, do you know if, like, could you give your insights maybe on like what kind of contents for the sports audience is working right now? Is it like humor-based content? Is it athlete-driven, like celebrity athlete-driven content? Or is it like, analysis, like skill-based content? Because I know I love watching those videos where like after a match, sometimes I see like people talking about like, oh, this shot was played like this because of this, like.
So I'm similar to you in that sense, but I do think we are the minority. We're sports nerds. We like that kind of technical stuff. And there definitely is some sort of audience for that, but I would say much smaller. In terms of content that really works, I think the biggest thing is personality driven content. Like we've touched upon this at various points in our conversation. Getting the opportunity to see what one of your favorite players is like off the pitch. And this is, so we've had a lot of these kind of match day -1 training sessions where you have your players interacting, joking around. You get to see not just their personalities, you get to see player dynamics. That type of stuff is golden. I mean, it's definitely far and above the major driver of performance. Because again, fundamentally, it's that relatability that we were talking about. So you get a glimpse into someone's personality and you realize like, oh, they're just like us. They're just fooling around and joking about, just like us, and people love to see that. I think another thing is, and I thought of mentioning, is Bollywood. Bollywood, as I mean, I think the way we look, I look at things in India. There's three things. I mean, fundamentally, I mean, we've got religion, we've got cricket, and we've got Bollywood. And cricket and Bollywood. So you already know that Bollywood, in any way or form, is gonna drive a lot of attention and interest. So, I mean, yes, you have any celebrity appearance content related to that, but even stuff like basic references, right? So, referencing like a song or any kind of dialogue, content like that always works well.
Fair.
Because if you look at it, from a pure technical cricketing point of view, a lot of the broadcast footage they've already seen, right? So if you put out highlights, that stuff obviously works well. Don't get me wrong.
People are watching it live also.
People have already seen it. So very often for those type of things, it's like, okay, it's a repeat viewing. Like the guys already watched it. And it's something they know. Whereas this is like never seen before footage.
Fair. It's like a good mix of like kind of merging the sports with something else in India that works really well. Like it's one of the other top, I guess, fields that is doing well. So I guess merging that. And then obviously just a couple of final things, like if someone were to be starting out in the sports industry today, what are some of the most exciting opportunities that you would think is like a good place to start, and also like a bit monetary viable, like, to make money, like also.
Yeah, so I mean, I think the first two things I always tell people when I have discussions around careers in sports, and I'm apologizing if this may sound a little kind of negative, but fundamentally as an industry, from my experience, I don't necessarily think sports is the best paying industry. If you're following kind of a corporate route. So if your primary goal is to just focus on making as much money as you can, very honestly, I don't know if this is the best kind of career path to take.
In India, especially.
In India, from what I've seen, this is of my personal experience in India.
Like that's the,
I'd like to I like to be transparent about this, because it's one thing I think. The second point is, it's still a very nascent industry. And while that also means that there's going to be a lot more opportunities down the line, as of now, on ground today, there's a limited number of organizations as well as roles and types of jobs out there. But that being said, I mean, don't get me wrong, I work in the field, I love it, I'm incredibly passionate about it, and there's a lot of incredibly talented and passionate people working in the field. So to answer your question around the kind of roles, interesting roles that are out there, I mean, look, digital is a great starting point. It's usually one of the tracks where I see a lot of people getting into the space. Digital. If you want to do something a little bit more on ground, marketing, your more traditional marketing is also something that works well. Another way to look at this is looking at what is a revenue driver for a team or an organization. It's getting a little technical, but the way I look at it is it's now end of the day, all of these departments have their own functions, but certain departments are bringing the money to the table or more money to the table compared to other departments. So the answer to this point is one of the departments which I generally think about is sales. So looking at sales, sponsorship sales, and a good kind of entry path into that type of department would be like a sponsor servicing type of role where you work with your sponsors, and essentially it's just understanding what sort of contract you have and making sure you're following through with those deliverables at various points in the season.
Yeah, fair. So basically, like trying to start out with actual departments where you think are the most important in terms of actually bringing those revenues in would be a good start, and digital is always a good place to start as well. And then final question is, now you've been obviously in this space for a while, so what are some of the key learnings you've learned over the years in the digital landscape for sports in India?
So I think one of the biggest things for me is, and this might sound a little basic, but India is such a diverse and culturally rich place, right? So Indian audiences, there's not one way to stereotype an Indian audience. The type of content consumed in a Mumbai may be very different from a Chennai, very different from a Kolkata. So being very aware that you're catering not just to one specific audience is very important. You know, having, and I think again we've touched on this at various points, that local regional strategy is important. You need to know what is your audience and cater to them accordingly.
Not just use one strategy for all.
Exactly. It's not, you can't just say, okay, this is what I'm going to do and put it out there. It's not necessarily, it's more layered than that, if I can say. I think another thing is even just related to this is platforms. So I can give you an interesting insight. Facebook, for example, like I personally don't use Facebook much. A lot of the people I talk to don't use Facebook much.
Exactly.
However, in the Bangla regions, I mean Calcutta and West Bengal, Facebook is huge. So what we've noticed is massive audience from those areas that are using Facebook.
So
so it's interesting because then you can kind of cater content, and I think this Facebook in general for the Bangla region is big. So understanding these nuances can make a big difference.
Like which platforms are kind of working well. Like I guess it's also a generational thing. Like maybe like our generation is using a bit more of Instagram, our parents are using Facebook, the younger generation is only using Snapchat apparently, I don't know. So I guess it's also kind of just understanding age groups and regions and then kind of fine-tuning your strategy according to that.
For sure. Another thing that I just wanted to quickly touch upon is, I think the future of digital when it comes to, I mean primarily in sports, but I think this applies to even wider industries, is building out what we call the first party database. Now this is a big kind of role, like a sub role within my wider role. And what it essentially means is how much of your audience do you actually know. So I can say an MI has 33 million followers on social media. But how many of those audience can I actually say I actually know their names, I know their age, I know their gender, I know their address, I mean not the exact address, but like where they live, I know certain things. And because that is the future of understanding who your audience is, and it's again kind of relates to what I was talking about, and catering the right kind of content and building the right engagement
like
around
a profile,
that. Like a profile, exactly. I mean, and that's how you can, sports organizations can also go to a specific, firstly they can understand who their audience is, they can understand what their interests might be, basis that they can cater content to them, and they can also find kind of like-minded brands who might be looking for a similar kind of audience. So fair. I definitely feel like that's the future, and another big part of that is personalization, right? I mean, I give you a very small example, but that is just scratching the surface. I think the future of digital is going to be a lot more personal.
Yeah.
It's not going to be like I'm just viewing content.
Yeah,
It'll kind of become two-way communication. I mean, again, this is down the line, but I think we are building the foundations for that.
Where it's heading towards. Yeah, nice. And just one thing that I ask everyone that comes on the show is, who is your favorite athlete and why?
So I have a couple. Can I give you a couple, or you just want one?
You can give me two, maybe.
Okay,
I think
I'll give you two. I'll give you two.
If you really can't fit it in.
No, I can manage in two. One is tough, but I can give you two.
Yeah.
So one is Mr. Lionel Andres Messi.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, I mentioned I'm a huge football fan,
Yeah.
and he has always kind of
Yeah.
seemed as someone who is more than just a human being.
Yeah.
I know I'm fanboying heavily, but it's just he's made me experience emotions that I didn't think I could through sport.
Yeah.
That was a huge thing. And another long-time favorite of mine is Novak Djokovic.
Nice.
So I've played tennis through my life, and I think there's a huge amount of like resilience and personality that he's held. And again, he's one of those kind of polarizing figures.
Yeah.
So not for everyone, but having kind of personally been on that journey with him, having seen him at seed number 3, when Nadal and Federer were at their peak, fighting it out, and kind of work through that and eventually get to where he was, achieve everything he has. I mean, it's just been a real pleasure, and grateful to have kind of lived in their generations.
No, fair. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
And hopefully having like many more conversations.
Yeah, most definitely. This is only the beginning.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I think it went on a bit longer than